I'm taking a mental health day.
Business as usual, I see.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast. Oh, Lord have mercy. This is going to be
Maybe
great.
I'm not taking a mental health day. Maybe
Maybe
it's our
someone
new
else
intern.
needs it.
It's our intern.
All right, let's try that again. Welcome back to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Today's guest comes to us all the way from the great state of Ohio. Author Akiva Hersh joins us tonight to discuss his upcoming book, which is released on October 10th during Coming Out Week, right?
Mhm.
Or
National Coming Out Week.
Coming Out Week. Boy in the Hole is called, it's the title of the book. It's a gripping account of a boy wrestling to understand himself, his family, and the world in which he lives. It is a cathartic tale of an adolescent refusing to accept his parents' toxic beliefs and the message of self-hate from religion and society.
Those
My
were
name
some
is-
big words.
Yes,
I'm
they
proud
were.
of you,
Yeah, like really proud.
So
especially when I saw cathartic. I just
I know,
pictured
I
you
was
saying like catheter.
I was
or
waiting for
something.
it. I was waiting
it's
for
one
it.
of my favorite words.
I wanted to
believe it
have
or
faith
not.
in you.
All right, so
Adolescent
listen.
was one of them
But
too.
do you ever notice that when he comes up on a word like that, it's like a breath first?
There is, yes. He's like,
I have to breathe. Okay, so my name is Tom, and I am your host. And just so that we can get it out there, so these bitches don't throw me under the bus.
oh, girl, we just
I
got
am
started.
doing a podcast in my underwear, but you can't see that. Anyway,
I was ready for it.
So
Me too.
as always, I'm here with my amazing co-host, starting with the first one,
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
and
Good to be with you guys. It's Chris.
welcome you all to
The
dish
Dish.
in the underwear.
In the Underwear. I cannot. Hi, boys.
Hi.
How are you guys? She's
going through it.
Yeah.
Hey!
All right. Well, listen. So we've got a lot to cover. We have a guest tonight. I'm excited. It's an interesting topic of a book. It's got some very serious undertones, in regards to just being who you want to be and trying to
Embrace yourself in a situation that
that really lends itself to just being targeted even by family members.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a very interesting talk with Akiva, and I'm super excited that he's going to be on the show with us. So we're going to jump right into our weekends very quickly and then talk about a couple of stories before we go to break.
Mhm.
So I'm going to toss it over to Chris because I know you're going through it. You don't want to talk about your weekends. So Chris, why don't you tell us how are you doing? How was your weekend?
Yeah, no, it was good. I worked most of the weekend as per usual. Did some studying. Friday night, I actually went out to New Haven. That was really fun.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I went out with a bunch of girls from work, and one of the guys from work, they're like, "Oh, come on out, Chris." I was like, "No, I got to go home and do homework." And my friend was like, "But you can't." And I was like, "Okay." So,
That was easy.
yeah, that was easy. So we went out to bar, and once we all started feeling good, I ran after everyone. I'm like, "Let's go to a gay bar." So we went to the bar that these two work at. It was a good time.
Nice.
Then went home, just worked, and then wasn't feeling too hot yesterday or today. But
I think I saw you for like 5 minutes on Friday.
Yeah, that's usually the hangover thing.
hangover thing.
Yeah, you're not feeling too well. You're
On
going
Friday?
through it.
I wasn't going through it.
What, did you drink on Friday with the girls?
Yeah.
So on Saturday he was going through it.
Saturday, my ass was at work and ready to go.
Oh, okay.
Even hit the books afterwards. She wanted me to go out with her, and I was like,
Not
I went out
happening.
last night.
Yeah, no, I had a backup date. Thank you, though.
Yeah, she did.
She never texted me back anyway.
It's
Mhm.
called Steven. But anyway,
Yep.
so Trish, how are you?
Good. I had I worked most of the weekend too. I worked Friday and Sunday. Saturday I spent it with, well, take a guess,
Steven.
Steve. We went out to eat, and we went to another restaurant because I had to touch base with a colleague of mine. But other than that, and then we actually we went to the bar, and after dinner and all that stuff, and I was like, Steve, I kind of feel like raging tonight. And he was like, oh, fuck. So he pulled me out of the bar at 1:30. He's like, I'm not dealing with this shit.
Yeah, so that means that, she didn't drive and Steve had to, and so he already knew what he was getting into.
Mhm. Yeah, but like actually I didn't even get that bad. But I was just like all of a sudden I was there and I was like, oh, I'm in it to win it tonight.
Oh, I suppose.
But then I went home and actually we didn't even drink that much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but overall, it was a good weekend, I suppose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Good. But Mondays are just horrible.
They're terrible.
Oh, it's so hard, right? So, so I spent almost the entire weekend on my knees, and no, I wasn't sucking or doing anything like
Ugh,
that.
but you had to bring it
You
down.
had to put it like that.
Yeah.
Well, because you two have dirty minds. and
No,
you-
we keep it nice.
You're in
usually
underwear.
Facts. Thank you, Trish.
I'm covered.
I'm
Thank you
fully
very much.
clothed.
That's all y'all need to know. You can't see it. See, it's under the table. But anyway, so yeah, I spent my entire weekend on my knees. So there's this new tool, and it's I'm not promoting the company, but it works and it's really amazing. So y'all need to hear about it. And it's called Curb It Yourself. Their website is curbityourself.com.
Brought to you by CurrentYourself.com.
But it's really not. Okay, first and foremost, it's a little mold that you buy that creates these like custom, like you can curve them in any way you want, like curbs, right? So you can line like garden beds with cement type of curbing, and it was just amazing. So I was like, you know what, let me buy this and try it. And oh my God, it is so freaking labor intensive. So when I started, I'm on my knees, I'm going through it, mixing the cement and then shoving it into this mold and moving it along. And it's like you do like literally 4 inches like every time you got to fill the mold and keep moving it and moving and moving it. And by I would say hour number 2, I was like, fuck this shit. I got in my car, I drove over to I believe it was Lowe's, and I bought me some really amazing, cushy, like gel-filled knee pads. So now I'm ready for any situation. And but I got really far. What did you? So you guys got a chance to see it. What do you think?
It looks good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just obsessed with just doing stuff around the house. But anyway,
I'm still fucking waiting on my hot tub.
I
And
know.
now it's 2 years out. Like he makes his little platform for himself, but where's my platform for the
Well,
fucking
I'm a
hot
big
tub?
girl. I need something to hold me up.
Ugh, I can't.
So, but yeah, that's what I've been doing. Listen,
You get fixated on things though.
I
You
do.
really do. Like you started using cement and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to cement the garden." And then you start just like throwing it around your backyard. I'm like, "All right, Tom, I get it." Like, and you're doing a great job, but you're totally fixated on cement right now.
He gets fixated on everything. He made my bed out of lumber and wire metalling in the back of his truck. Like he was prepared for me, and that's what my bed was.
I
rebar and all that stuff.
All that stuff.
I don't think he planned that.
No, I think it just happened. He's like, ow.
That camera was set up
Okay.
quite professionally.
Well, that was set up
Yes, it was.
professionally. Yeah.
I knew that was going to happen. I was actually contemplating that on the entire ride home. When I get home, I'm going to pull this fucker out of the back through the hatch while the camera is rolling, and we're going to make fun of it.
Hey, as long as I got my floor sandwich, I was a happy man.
That and your stir
And my
fry.
stir fry, which I was thinking about making again tonight because that was quite delicious.
So yeah, but to answer your to corroborate what you guys say, yes, it is true. Once I start something, I get obsessed with it, and I have to go run with it and do things. And long story short, it's coming out amazing, and I'm excited. I'm just gonna keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, with the planning,
gonna-
not this story though, right?
No, the story's done.
that story's done.
Cool. Long story
So,
short, just making
I
sure.
spend all weekend on my knees. Short story short.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. We know that the Astroglide's always in a different place when we get here.
Always, it really is. Like,
It's in the kitchen right now on the counter
It
by the
is,
sink.
yeah, but I
saw
got really concerned when I saw it in the microwave one time.
It was never in the microwave. You're nasty. Like, I'm not gonna Crisco like boil my dick. You're nasty. No, it's sitting by the sink because you wash it out and you just make sure the bottle's not slippery for the next time you need it.
Ugh. Okay, this is inappropriate. But
Yes.
Whatever.
appropriate. But last week I came over. Was it last week? Whatever. I came over and the Astroglide was in the living room, and I'm like, "Oh, hi, Tom. I see it.
I plowed my
right there."
friend on the
He's
sofa.
like, and I'm sitting on the sofa. He goes, "I plowed my friend on that sofa."
Oh.
I'm like, "Fucking great."
No wonder I've been
Fucking
sliding
great.
off the
Like,
thing.
This is.
Oh.
It's your house. Like, live your life. But
It is every time you walk in, it's like a game of Where's Waldo? Like, where is it now? Where is it now?
I cannot. I cannot.
Why is it next to the weed whacker?
I
Like,
think-
it's just
new segment. New segment. Where's Waldo?
I cannot with you guys. Oh, that's too funny.
Ah,
All right, well, listen, we're gonna move into some stories. Weekends are done. Thank you for enjoying that and laughing with us. So we've got some things happening, some good, some bad. I want to kick it off with a story. YouTube stars. We have a couple of LGBTQ stars that promote and actually produce stuff for YouTube. They have their own YouTube channels that have been, doing content for quite a while, a long time. And they have now band together. There's about 9 of them that band together to sue YouTube because they say that YouTube is intentionally um, labeling their content as
Offensive,
offensive just
inappropriate.
because inappropriate just because they're an LGBTQ show or someone that produces content and where either a couple, whether that be 2 women, 2 men, transgender person, it doesn't matter what it is. What they're alleging is that YouTube is purposely going through and labeling their content as such so that their content is not readily available or showing up on searches, and also in doing so, it is demonetizing their podcast.
mhm.
So because if your podcast is flagged for inappropriate, content
Or show.
or show, you cannot be a monetized show, and
So,
so that also prohibits your opportunities to be able to make money
right.
when you're doing this type of work.
So what they're saying here is that the YouTube is unfairly targeting any videos that are tagged with words like gay,
Hmm.
transgender, or bisexual. So obviously, like when we do our post,
That's right.
we hashtag and we tag everything so that certain audiences can find things easier.
Hmm.
And so if YouTube is using these key words or key tags to find videos and take them off their platform, that's really terrible. On top of that, it's also against the YouTube platform's policies.
That's right. The community
Uh,
standard policy.
so, yeah, this is crazy.
And it's
It
also
truly
important.
is.
It's important to point out that not only is this affecting our community, but it's affected the Gay Talk family. We had talked about this before with
Right.
Michael Buckley,
That's right.
with some of his videos being flagged or removed, and people were no longer able to access that.
And Michael Buckley is actually one of the plaintiffs. I believe he said that he was actually part of this whole initiative because he believes that freedom of expression, especially here in the U.S., where we have a freedom of speech, is very critical in being able to communicate and get the message out there. Just because a show is labeled LGBTQ or gay
Hmm.
or lesbian or transgender does not necessarily mean that the content that they're presenting is inappropriate for any specific age
Or
group.
mature
Or
content.
Oh,
mature,
more sure, right. And it's funny you brought up freedom of speech because under that umbrella of the First Amendment, you could also look at the freedom of the press. Like this can be a media plug for people using YouTube. It can be something to highlight our freedom of assembly, where people can be having these town hall events who are really pushing forward the LGBT rights agenda. And if this is
Mhm.
being stifled from the company, they're going against 3 particular parts of the first and most critical amendment of our
That's right.
Constitution.
I mean, it's to the point where, like, for example, we produce all of our videos that you guys see on LiveStream with an app and a camera that belongs. It's a proprietary product for Vimeo. And so I've even considered myself having a conversation with the boys. We're going to do that right now about pulling our content from YouTube if this is going to be the case and trying to find alternate ways of promoting or putting our live video feeds for our Patreon subscribers on a different platform.
Mhm.
Because if YouTube is going to sit there and outright start flagging our stuff and saying that we may have inappropriate content, which chances are we do, um, that's a problem because you don't have the same guidelines for straight people, right? You don't know what the person's going to talk about until you click on that video and say, "This is what I'm talking about
Mhm.
today." And so I think that it's just pretty crazy that this is in this day and age in 2019. We're about to go into 2020 that we have to go through this with companies, especially one like Google that's based out of the U.S. of A.
Which I believe, it owns YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's taking on a huge industry. I believe it's something that would be worth considering. That being said, I believe that it is imperative that we follow where this lawsuit is going.
That's right.
So we can make a decision on that.
Correct.
I think I need more clarification.
Exactly, which is
because-
why we need to follow this a
right,
little bit more.
Because so we have, a YouTube spokesperson saying, we're proud that so many LGBTQ creators have chosen YouTube as a place to share their stories and build a community. All content on our site is subject to the same policies. Fine, of course, great. Then he goes on to say our policies have no notion of sexual orientation or gender identity, and our systems do not restrict or demonetize videos based on the factors of inclusion of terms like gay or transgender. But then why are these things coming down, especially when you have people within this article saying, look, this is a news show. I'm just a gay guy giving the news. So why are these things being taken down? I think we need to dive deeper into this story.
One of the two plaintiffs, are alleging that in particular they were making about 25, I believe it's like anywhere between $2,500 and $3,500 doing their shows and monetizing their podcast, and because of the impact that this has had on their shows on YouTube, they're now making no more than $500. So that's a huge, considerable,
That's a hit.
Right.
to their budget when it takes time, effort, and money to produce stuff like this on YouTube.
Right, but we do need to look into this a little bit more, because when you continue with the quote that Nick was reading, it said, in addition, that YouTube has strong policies prohibiting hate speech and quickly remove content that violates their policies and terminate accounts that do so repeatedly. And that's important because when you look at their parent company, Google had been under fire from the far right, saying that they were stifling the right side of the political spectrum, saying that they were removing tags for people who are searching things on the conservative side or the neo-Nazi side, and promoting more liberal views. So it's also important to dive into their parent company, Google, if this is something that they're really doing, if it is getting involved with free speech, or if it's really just making sure that it stifles hate speech, which is not protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Correct. So, one of the two plaintiffs, Bria Cam and Chrissy Chambers, are a married duo who have been producing videos for their YouTube channel, Bria and Chrissy, for nearly 7 years. And so for them to be doing it that often, and then all of a sudden start seeing these changes happen, there might be some legitimacy behind the claims that they're making. And I guess in the end, we're just going to have to wait and see how this all plays out. And whatever the decision or whatever the findings are, then we as a show here would have to probably make a decision as to how we want to proceed
And move forward, right.
Move forward, providing video content to our Patreon
But
subscribers.
it's also important that we stay transparent and follow this as it develops, rather than just wait for a decision.
I'm sure this is not the end.
Oh,
because
no,
we
this is but the beginning.
Yeah, we already had other plaintiffs that started this process, I believe, 1.5 years ago, when it was first starting to be noticed in the YouTube sphere. So, that being said, I think we can hit that one with a hammer on the nail and keep it moving.
Yeah, well, we can do this. That gives a good segue, actually, to something I have on here.
That's right. So why don't we go for it?
Yeah. Thanks to YouTube, a YouTube interview, a gospel singer in the quite homophobic nation of Rwanda has come out, despite living in a country where, like I said, it's very anti-LGBT in that nation. This gospel singer, Albert Nabonibo, came out in a YouTube interview, in a sense, faced significant backlash from within his church. He's a gospel singer. And then within his own network of friends. Now, he said, quote, "But there is no going back because I have to live my real life. It's so sad to see people abusing you." So this is someone who is probably quite popular if he's a famous gospel singer, popular in the religious community, and then popular amongst his own personal community. This was his platform to come out, show his truth, be responsible to himself and respectful to himself to accept who he is, and then hopefully get peoples in this nation to be woke and to be more transparent and more accepting of who they are, and show that this is not, as some say, homosexuality in Rwanda, some say, is a new thing, and this is not a new thing.
It's not a new thing.
Those who are saying it are trying to stifle the fact that LGBT people are part of the Rwandan community, are part of the religious community in Rwanda, and are part of their own inner circle with their friends and their family.
Awesome.
And
I mean, not awesome, but no.
But then
I thought you weren't done, and that's how I'm like, what? Say anymore.
Well, it's important because under their constitution, which I believe was from 2017, 2003, their penal code does not point to anything illegal in the aspect of homosexuality. It does not promote same-sex marriage, but it does not, under their constitution, say that homosexuality is illegal, though this is an increasingly anti-LGBT nation, and YouTube could have been this platform to reach out to the LGBT youth, even those beyond the youth living in a nation where they're so hated or even invisible because people don't think this exists. So now using this platform of YouTube under Google, if that's going to be stifled, then that's going to be just something to be detrimental to pushing forward LGBT rights in this hateful nation of Rwanda.
It's interesting because I'm reading the article now because I didn't see it until you just mentioned it. But it seems to me like the conversation we were having a couple weeks ago about the definition of sex is kind of in the same vein here as what we're dealing with in the United States, because it says all Rwandans are born and remain free and equal in rights and duties. Discrimination of whatever kind based on inter alia, ethnic origin, tribe, clan, color, sex, region, social origin, religion or faith, opinion, economic status, culture, language, social status, physical or mental disability, or any other form of discrimination is prohibited and punishable by law. So I feel like this is another situation where if we could actually define sex as, expand what that actually means, and dive into, is it sexual orientation? Is it just,
or does it include sexual orientation,
or male or female? Does it include transgender individuals? We need to really dive into what that means in the Constitution, both ours and clearly here, so that we can expand and provide protections for people that deserve it.
Right, exactly. And under Article 26 of their 2003 Constitution, it limits the right of marriage to heterosexual couples, stating, quote, only civil monogamous marriage between a man and a woman is recognized. So again, yes, we would have to, or the Rwandan Constitution would have to then further define what the term sex means, just as we need to here at home.
But in Article 46, it also states every citizen has the duty to relate to other persons without discrimination and maintain relations conducive to safeguarding, promoting, and reinforcing mutual respect, solidarity, and tolerance. So that then can umbrella the entire LGBTQ plus community.
Well, I think that the issue that we're running into, and you're right, I think that once we get to the point where we define what sex means in this text, in this context, I think that it would resolve a lot of the issues that we have in our community, both here and abroad in other countries, in where sex really isn't defined. But what I think is happening is that we have right-wing legislators or politicians that probably don't want to, because they know that that gives them a license to discriminate, even covertly, just because sex is not defined in either their constitution or our constitution.
But this constitution is conflicting itself. I mean, that statement I just read, right? So we just read that statement, and now here's another one that says, we don't have any specific law on homosexuality, but we have a family law which states that a person only gets married to another person of the opposite sex. Right? So then it goes on to say, hold on, I literally just had it. Homosexuality is automatically illegal in our country. Our culture only allows a man to have a relationship with a woman, and that is why anybody caught in the act should be punished, is what this person is saying. But then that directly contradicts the statement that I read just a minute ago.
Their actual, what it says in their constitution is that it is not illegal to be homosexual or commit homosexual acts unless one of the people is under the age. That's what it is. So it is not, there is nothing in their constitution that says that in Rwanda, if you commit homosexual acts, that is against the law. It is not against the law.
So what's the family law thing then?
It's saying that homosexuality is not illegal in the nation of Rwanda.
It's almost like Russia, right? It's
but
not
we
illegal,
have a family law which
but they have that
states-
propaganda law.
No, it's not a propaganda law.
That's
a
kind of what
law.
it sounds like.
It's what it sounds like. So you have certain parts of the Constitution that read that you are protected, that you are,
But then we'll have another part that does contradict it.
It's like Russia all over.
It's
again.
almost allowing discrimination. They have in one point of it, they say that you cannot be discriminated. All Rwandans are created equal. But then they have another one that say under our penal code, to promote a proper family, then
you can't do
you
X,
can.
Y, Z.
Chris, I'm really glad you brought this up because I haven't been able to dive into this article clearly because I just pulled it up. But I mean, if you move forward into the article, it says incitement of violence or to violence. Even more dangerously, journalists have been using media to incite violence and discrimination against homosexuals.
Mhm.
Like, this is a huge problem
is
in
a hu-
Rwanda.
And it's happened. Rwanda's gone through multiple genocides in the past.
That's right.
When President Obama was in office, we miss you. He was
Every day.
yeah, he was almost like, I believe he was even banned from entering Rwanda when he was calling out the hatred that they were spewing toward the LGBT community, the hatred that how
Certain
anti
tribes. and
Oh,
certain-
of course. And
Yeah.
then he was condemning the president of Rwanda and the lawmakers from allowing this man to serve multiple terms that seem to perhaps be illegal elections. There are many things that are going in Rwanda to suppress the people, to really suppress the Constitution or add to the Constitution, which contradicts itself, which Trish had said,
Yeah,
coming with the family plan,
all these,
the Family Act.
they're all human rights violations against all peoples. And in the end, they need to first fix the conflicts in their constitution, where one statement may insinuate that you have protection from the law, and then the other statement in another article says that you can't do X, Y, Z, and then you have another family, protection act that tries to protect children from homosexual people, like if we're a disease or something bad. But again, most of this would be fixed if we would take the time to really sit there and define what sex is.
So I want to read one last piece from this article, and then
We'll go to break.
I would love Chris to just plug the gentleman again who
Yes.
came out publicly because he's setting a precedent and a platform which has the potential for change. There's an urgent need for well-planned and targeted advocacy to oppose an amendment to a penal code to criminalize homosexuality in Rwanda. Institutionalizing discrimination against individuals on the basis of their sexual orientation not only violates the fundamental principles and freedoms outlined in their constitution, but also sets a dangerous precedent for discrimination and division in the country that has been battled, as you said, for many decades. So this person standing up and coming out, really, it's a huge step. So please plug him again. Let's give him some claps.
Absolutely. This is a gospel singer from Rwanda, and his name is Albert Nabonibo. So he gets claps. Thank you, Albert, because we know Rwanda being located in Central Africa, bordering the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, even close to Egypt, even though we know that LGBT rights in those areas are if not illegal, their protections are non-existent. So what this man is doing, like Trish said, is setting a precedence to move forward, hopefully, and we need activists and advocates to continue to work along these people.
And you don't have to be from Rwanda. Donate
Right.
to a cause. Just be there.
And just
Be
talk about it.
vocal.
Just
Yeah.
talk about it. You have to get the story going.
Yeah, there's a lot of LGBT initiatives that are taking donations and funds to be able to bring to light things like this that are happening all over the globe. So
And also to help service those people that are in those areas that need support and help.
Absolutely.
All right, well, listen, guys, we would love to sit here and chat more on the subject. Obviously, there's much more that we can dive into this, but we do need to take a break because we do have a guest coming on the show. So we're going to leave you with some music, and when we come back, we're going to have Akiva Hersh on the show. Here we go.
It's hard to see you with a man you call your friend, but in the end, I know I don't have much time to tell you why I wanna die, but then I cry, so then I lie, so I don't make you bend time. 'Cause if you wanted me to move, you know I would, because I'm good at making you love me. And if I said I needed more than I came for, would you ignore me making you love me? So baby, play me on your loudspeaker. If This is in your eyes confirm that this is it.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the break. That was the incredible Pat Riley with "Time," one of our, featured songs. He's just an amazing singer, and we do love the work that he's done. And I hope that he continues to do more because we want to hear more of that amazing, soulful, beautiful voice. Anyway, joining us now is author Akiva Hersh to discuss his upcoming book, Boy in the Hole. See, this is why you don't drink when you do a show.
That's the only reason we drink while we do the show.
So anyway, a little bit about the book. It is a gripping account of a boy wrestling to understand himself, his family, and the world in which he lives. It is a cathartic tale of an adolescent refusing to accept his parents' toxic beliefs and the messages of self-hate from religion and society. It is truly our pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I know that introduction's a mouthful, but the book is too.
It's a very, very important book. So I just wanted to put a little bit of this information out there. Obviously, our listeners know I am a Latino person. I come from a part of the world in where machismo is very big. It's very toxic, and of course, religion is also very big. So it really hits home when you think about how parents, especially, start to talk about life, things that you do, how you act, how you behave, how you go about your daily life, and then start bringing all these religious things into it and saying, hey, you're my son and I love you, XYZ, but did you know
Right.
that
Right.
our Bible says that you're going to go to hell, or that,
Right.
your lifestyle is something
A
just
sin.
a sin.
And that's the thing, it's machismo and it's been masculinity that's been hijacked by so many different cultures, by so many different religions, by corrupt governments, by different political. You guys were talking about some amazing stuff before this. Even YouTube is trying to hijack culture and what should be positivity. And that's sort of the impetus that made me put this story out there, because it's got three really deep levels to this book. One is identity, and it happens to be surrounded around a gay character. This book is a autobiographical fiction, which means I created a fictitious character. This boy's name is Jacob, and his time frame that he's growing up in is the 70s, where there was a hell of a lot of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Nixon was corrupt. You
Mm-hmm.
had men coming home with PTSD who were fighting the machismo role, but inside they were breaking. Society was corrupt. And you know what? It looks a lot like today. We have a corrupt president. We have people who are hijacking and trying to say this is not masculine. This is not feminine. You're not black enough. You're not, you shouldn't be. It's so, there's a bridge that's happening between then and now. So I put Jacob in the 70s, which is when I grew up. And then I wanted to add the layer of bullying. So he comes from a a family on one side they're all religious fanatics. They're Southern Baptist, but they're all either pedophiles or they're gay themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they hide behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of his family are Irish Catholics who are hiding behind alcoholism and materialism. But they also have their own sexuality and their own problems that they don't ever talk about. And so Jacob's struggling with this question: what the fuck do I do? I'm gay. And then on top of that, he gets bullied in school. His sister gets molested by one of the Southern Baptist fanatics. And he's trying to swim in this. He didn't make this hole himself. He was born into it.
Right.
And the story is about him, how he learns to dig out. really.
S-
And that's where I'm so go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So you said it was autobiographical. So tell me a little bit
Yes.
about where the inspiration from the book came from. Is it about your life, or is it about somebody you know?
So in a lot of ways, I'm like Jacob. A lot of things. What I did was I created a kid who was a lot more precocious than I was. Um, when I was a child, I was the one. If you saw me on recess, I would be literally trying to hide behind an oak tree that was 3 times as big as I was, and
Hmm.
no one would see me. Jacob is not like that. This boy is sort of flirtatious, in your face, adventurous, and so he's very different than I am. But I put him through very similar scenarios that I went through as a child. Um, I dealt with abuse as a child. I dealt with it in a very different way. Jacob takes control and becomes the instead of becoming the abused, he takes over and begins to enjoy the abuse. Not the abuse itself. Let me rephrase that because I'll catch a lot of hell. Well, what I mean by that is it becomes a sexual awakening for him. He's abused by an older man and he realizes that he wishes it was his best friend who was doing those things to him.
Okay.
And then he turns around and ends up doing those things with his best friend. And he realizes I'm not like other boys. So he's a very self-aware kid, whereas I lived in a hole until I found some people who could help me out. So it's autobiographical to a degree, but Jacob is very different than I am.
You just literally described me in 5 minutes.
Really?
Like
In
seriously.
what way?
So in the sense that when I was younger, I moved. Well, my mother moved us to Puerto Rico, and as you know, a Latino, you know, we can call it a nation, a colony, whatever we want to call it today.
Right.
It's a very machista. It's not cool to talk about your sexuality, especially if it doesn't conform to the norms of what society
That's
expects you
right.
to be. And then it's like I remember being 13, I remember being 12, 13, 14 years old and going through these experiences and having these types of experiences with adults and then suddenly enjoying it and taking
Yes.
ownership of it and then thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to be the boss of my feelings, my emotions, I'm going to take control of what's happening to me and do
Wow.
something with it. And I started experimenting and finding myself. By the age of 14, I came out and I was very in your
Wow.
face and just,
Accepting of who you were.
you have to. You have no choice, right? Because you can
Yeah.
do one of two
But
things.
it's an immature acceptance. At 14, it's a young acceptance.
That's
It's a
right.
beginning,
I mean, I
which is where we
had the plus side for me is that I had people in my family that were gay. I have an aunt who's a lesbian and has been.
I do too. I
She's
have two very close people in my family who are gay.
she's been in a monogamous relationship for about 25 years. She came out of a marriage, met this woman, and literally they raised their child. He ended up being also gay, part of the community. I have an uncle who's gay who taught me so much. Once I removed myself from Puerto Rico and came here back to Connecticut, he taught me so much about the lifestyle, what to look out for, what not to do. Don't hang around that type of crew because they're not good for you. But my experience in Puerto Rico was it's like I can do one of two things. I can bury myself in my sorrow and what has happened to me, or I can grab it by the balls, literally,
That's right.
and
That's
make it
right.
my own existence and then own my future. How am I going to move
Yes,
forward with this experience?
But
that's
It's
right.
but you know, it's interesting that you bring that up though, because we don't on the show talk a lot about the fact that rape happens in or molestation happens
Just
in
sexual abuse in general, right?
for men. I mean, you hear a lot about
That's right.
women that are
It's
molested
a
or
lot
raped.
easier. That's right.
It is a lot easier. Not no, that's a terrible thing to say. It's more
No, I mean,
socially spoken about. Um,
yes, that's right.
but really, in our community, not just our community, but people are taken advantage of constantly, and we need to be
Yes,
able to embrace that. And I think
that's
I think your book speaks to that a little bit.
It does. What I meant by easier is there's a lot, and it's a good thing. I'm not complaining a bit that we have the Me Too movement, but if you notice, the Me Too movement is female centric.
Mm-hmm.
It's and that's a good thing.
And it
But
needs to
we
be.
also what
It needs to be.
say again?
It
It needs
needs
to
to
be,
be. Yes.
and we need to empower our boys to speak up and say, you know, I was also molested,
Mhm.
or I was also. And the part of the difficulty, I'm a neuropsychologist. Part of the difficulty in speaking up about being molested is there is shame. Part of it is because a lot of times victims do go through an enjoyment of the experience
Mhm.
if they're at a certain age, and like what you were saying and what Jacob experiences in the book, he utilizes that. Well, how does psychology, how do movements, instead of you having to go, oh well, this was a totally 100% bad thing, how do we name that? How do we put that as human, a human touch to it, and go, you know what they did was wrong, but how do you grow from this?
Right.
And if you don't mind, there's a short section in the book I wanted to share with you.
Oh yeah,
Please.
That
please.
goes Okay, so basically, this is actually This is actually a true part of my real story as Akiva. My mom's best friend was gay, and he lived down the street. And I would often go to his house because he had a swimming pool and stuff. But this is Jacob's version of this. So he's gone down to Wayne's house, and Wayne is from New Orleans. And Jacob gets hungry and says, "Is there anything in the refrigerator?" So Wayne brought out a whole chicken from the refrigerator, digging and scraping into its body cavity. He removed the guts. Disgusting. You don't wear gloves for that? Jacob screwed his face up. Honey, these are going to be good eating. Now start chopping them carrots. There's a knife in that drawer. Wayne washed and dried the neck and shook it off in Jacob's face. What's that make you think of? A dick, said Jacob, cringing with self consciousness. Boys have such dirty minds, said Wayne, winking. Make those slices thinner. Wayne, kids at school call me a faggot. Well, if that's what you are, that's what you are. There's nothing wrong with it. It was as easy and as honest exchange between two people cleaning chicken and cutting vegetables with patchouli incense and disco music drifting through the kitchen. It was an innocent and natural for each to drop the veil of everyday charades, for each to allow a shard of light to wedge itself into their sordid closets of secrets and declare everything in them human and acceptable.
Wow.
That is so me.
And,
Thank you.
and that's kind of what I wrote this book, is to bring out these levels of, we have generations, whether you're gay or straight, that have this bridge that you can bring of experience to each other.
Right.
Soldiers coming home with PTSD who get resources and become whole people again, could reach out and touch and help a kid trying to come out as gay. This book tries to build those bridges because there's so many levels going on.
When we talk about um, molestation, and when we talk about situations like that for men, not just in our community, but in general, I've had experiences with individuals that then struggle with their sexuality and can't really figure out what it means to them. And I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit. I had a really good friend who had an experience growing up, and he turned out to be bisexual. But that being said, I think for a long time he blamed his sexual confusion on these experiences that he had. And I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit.
I mean, can we talk about people like what Kevin Spacey has done,
Right.
and some of these different actors who, all these things coming out now, and these children get lost in these narratives, and we have society, and you guys were talking about defining sex earlier, and it's so salient because if you're molested, if you're exposed to a sexual experience before you're ready, well, what the counseling has to focus on is to help you put meaning to it that will put you in the best position to be able to be a healthy adult,
Right.
not to make it bad or dirty. Kids begin to ask questions really early these days. And psychologists and psychiatrists and people helpers need to be able to be in a place where they're not the ones shocked, and they're not the ones reacting to their own stuff when a kid who's been molested wants to know how to put it all together in terms of gender, sexuality, LGBT issues, because I don't. There, it's a spectrum. Nobody is 100% straight. Nobody's 100% gay. People are going to be more and more in the future willing and wanting to have different kinds of sexual experiences. And why does it have to continually be so black and white?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we keep treating, oh, you were molested by a man, but you're a man, so that means you have to have some kind of therapy that touches that in that way, that treats it in that way. That could be damaging.
Like, absolutely.
But then how do you then, again, also empower that individual, right? Because that individual, whether they're gay or straight or bi or gender fluid, whatever they grow to be, how do you then say, it doesn't matter that you were a man, you were taken advantage of?
Right.
I think we have to get away from the labels.
Absolutely.
I think
Agreed 100%, because when you look at women that are assaulted, it's always the biggest deal is made when they're assaulted by people of power. And then the only
Yes.
time that people really talk about boys who are assaulted is when you look for religious aspects, like the scandals going throughout the Catholic
Right.
Church. So there's if you're assaulted by someone of power, it's got to be a woman, and if you're assaulted by the religious churches, it's got to be a man, and there's nothing in between where people are talked about or
Right.
taken seriously.
And I think we also have to start helping people stop holding on so much to labels of their own ego, because ego, there's a ton of new research out now about neuroscience. They did studies after the World Trade Center where people who were closest to the downtown section of the World Trade Center, and then those who were about 30 to about 60 miles away, people who were closest to the World Trade Center a year later, physically closest, had better memories of the experience. But both memories degraded. In other words, they added in things that didn't happen, or they our memories are not 100% perfect. They
Right.
actually, our narratives, the most important things that happen to us in our lives, are not 100% perfectly recalled. We recreate those memories. So our ego is much more fluid. And as long as we hold on to, well, I must be gay and that is my label, or I must be bisexual and that is my label, then we're going to get into trouble then if we're trying to deal with experiences that are outside of that label. So we could help by relaxing society's insistence on black and white labels. That would be one thing, which is part of why the far right is so dangerous, because that's where they live.
Right.
So I want to move the conversation in a slightly different direction now. I think we need to talk a little bit about how Jacob navigates his family, right? So we talked
Yeah.
about some of the experiences that he went through, but how does he navigate this religious family and then still come out strong in the story?
So I'm so glad you asked that, because he doesn't. I mean, he begins to really develop depression. He gets bullied in school. And so he finds his family, he ends up acting out. He ends up doing something in the novel to cause great attention and distress to his family. And ultimately, he gets put in family therapy, where he meets what in my life was my real life savior. My Yoda is what I call her. She's about 4.5 feet tall, 5.5 feet if you count her bouffant hairdo. And she's from North Carolina with a southern. That's right. And she spoke with a southern accent, and she saved my life. So I have a version of her in this book, and he gets tuned into her way of thinking and her psychology. She has this way of doing psychology called quantum change, and it's based on a real type of psychology, but it's very radical. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, those type of people. They've all learned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Awaken the Giant Within. Well, it's based on that, where that psychology came from. And she basically takes Jacob under his wing at 12 years old because she sees him copying her. He begins to act like she does and begins to manipulate the family, which is what I did. He begins to act differently at school, starts making friends at school, which is what I did. And so he begins to heal himself, and she thinks, oh my God, I need to teach him or he's going to become a monster, because it's extremely persuasive.
Right.
this kind of
Mm-hmm.
communication style. So he begins to learn he's different from his family and can change his identity, can change his ego. And he begins to crawl out of the hole that way.
It's pretty interesting that you say that, how to crawl out of the hole when you're presented with certain situations. And we're talking about family and religion, but I want to go back because based on my experiences when I was younger, it shaped how I behaved going forward, right? Because for me was my experience, my sexual experiences basically said to me, you have to be seductive. It's the power of
Yes.
seduction. It's the
Right.
power of making sure that no matter what happens, you have control. And I did that for many years. And I took some sort of pride and joy in being able to seduce people. And
That was your
typically,
power.
it
That's when
was
you
my
found your
power.
power.
And it was
Yeah,
typically people that were older than me because that's all I had experienced when I was younger. And so I thought that
that's
was
right.
the norm. Okay, I'm going to be seductive. I'm going to take power. I'm going to do it on my terms. But these are the type of people that I have to aim for. And so they were always
That's right.
older. And I always learned to identify with older people and sharing experiences with older people. But it was always on my terms and power. And one of the hardest things that I learned that I had to learn was to separate the experiences that you can have with a human being from it being sexual. For me, during my
Yes,
whole entire 20s, it was all about sex. It was all sexual. It was all me trying to control someone with a specific function of the body that really didn't make up for your entire aspect of life. And in
that's
my
right.
30s, I had to work a lot in learning to cultivate relationships without having it to be sexual. And that was one of the
Real
hardest things.
intimacy, non-sexual intimacy is hell. It's tough.
It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. And
That's right.
like I've had these boys next to me for the better part of four years. Doing the show, we've been together for about 3 years. Had they met me in my 20s, I probably would have tried to sleep with them because my
Super busy.
level
I would have been super young.
by then
I would have been that would have been illegal.
pretty much. But I'm just saying, if I had a version of you when I was growing up in my 20s, your interactions with me would have all been revolving around sex because that's what I thought was normal given my experience. And
Right.
and I'm happy that I was able to work through that, but it wasn't easy.
But I think to just talk to that a little bit, I think that a lot of men and women that go through situations like that desensitize themselves and desensitize sex so that what happened to them isn't as bad. And so
Put it in a
what you
box.
did, what you did in your 30s to find a way to be intimate with people that wasn't sex was probably one of the hardest things you've ever done in your life.
Yeah.
And the whole it's not just original to you. This is something that
No,
a majority of the population goes
It
through.
happens
Yeah,
to a lot of
That's right.
people.
That's right.
So
If there's a, I'm
no,
sorry,
no,
I'll-
no,
please,
please go.
I was just gonna say, like, if there's a gazelle and a lion in the Sahara, and the lion is going after the gazelle, and the gazelle is about to get eaten, but she trips and falls over a rock, and the lion flies over her and she escapes. What does she think she has to do for the rest of her life to escape the lion?
I'm gonna go
Fall
trip
over
over
a rock.
every freaking rock
Trip.
there is.
Walk. She'll walk with a limp. She'll think she has to walk with a limp because she equates that to survival.
Mhm.
Wow.
So Jacob crawls out of this hole, but it's not complete. I mean, there's a sequel coming, because we live out of one fucking hole into another. I mean, we really do. So it's a constant learning thing. It's not like it's only one hole. You were going to say something before I said that.
Yeah, I know. And then I got completely
But
distracted.
that's all right because I wanted to say on that. That's why I love the title of this
Oh.
book and what it stands for is because Boy in the Hole, you're born in this hole and you have to pull yourself out of it and you're going to fall into other ones. And it's so different
Yes.
from you've made your bed, now sleep in it. This isn't from a decision that you decided to come up with. This is how life just
That's right.
is.
That's right.
I actually I wanted
She
to go back
remembers
to
now.
yeah, obviously. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about, how Jacob learns this new way to interact with people, and I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit. What does that mean, and what way was he interacting with people where this psychologist was like, oh, I need to get involved here?
So, for example, there's a lot of you'll see it a lot in pop psychology. You'll see in articles like on Medium and stuff how to get instant rapport with someone, and they'll tell you these articles. Well, you copy their body language. Like right now, you're sitting in a certain way. Your knees are crossed over and your hand is touching your face because I can see you. We're on Skype, or you're touching your mustache and I'm copying you. Those are ways of getting rapport, and it goes back to our lizard brain where we sort for patterns of similarity. Well, it still works because if you look similar to me or in a similar posture, our brainwaves begin to line up.
Mhm.
So those are some of the things Jacob learned. Those are some of the things I learned at a very young age, how to get rapport with people faster. If you talk at a certain rate of speech and I slow down and I speak at your certain rate of speech, we'll get in sync with each other sooner. It's how people make friends naturally that you can utilize in a quicker way to get people to listen to you. You get their attention faster. So Jacob begins to learn some of these things and he tries them out on the playground. He tries them out with his teachers and he learns to become a little manipulative and he starts to get a different kind of power where he realizes, oh, I can use that here, but I can also use it at home when mom goes crazy. So when mom has a breakdown, he actually saves his parents from several suicide attempts, which is a true story. My parents had both had mental illness issues that I assisted them through as a teenager. I actually kept them, from killing themselves. So I put that in the story. I was awarded the Peer Counselor Award in my high school when I was 16 or 17. Jacob becomes that guy, But the problem for him then is the struggle between faith and psychology because he has a very strong pull towards wanting to experience God.
Right.
And so that becomes also another layer of the conflict, which was true for me as well.
So if you could, obviously with your experience with this book that you're putting out there, if you could give an individual advice that may find themselves in a situation like this and wants to move forward in life and embrace who they are, what would you say to them?
It's already starting off on the wrong foot because when you say embrace who you are, you're already going to get all kinds of red flags. People are terrified of embracing who they are because they don't know who they are. The first step is to stop telling yourself who you are and just be quiet and watch and listen and see what's there. And to not try and embrace, to stop doing anything and just be with it. It's almost like a meditation exercise where you notice your breath coming in and out. People hate to be alone. People hate to be in a room where there's silence. But that's the first step, is to just realize you can't not be yourself. And that's the first step, is just be with that thing, how ugly it is, how terrifying it is. Sit right there with it for as long as you can. That's the first step to getting out of the hole. Don't try and change it. Don't try and drown it out with drugs, sex, rock and roll. Be quiet and let it be right there with you.
That was powerful.
That was intense.
Yes, it was. So I have a question for you. So obviously this book is autobiographical, but it also has some elements of recreation. You're creating these characters. Have your parents read this book?
They have not read it yet. They will. I've promised them, first cuts on the copies. I did a lot of research on the front end of it a year before I began to write it. So I interviewed mom and dad. My grandparents on both sides are dead, so I had to do it because there's a small piece of the front end where it goes pre-Jacob, before he's born, and it starts with him as an infant, because that's where the shit really gets crazy as soon as he's born. And so, mom and dad know what's in here. And, they fed me love. They're divorced. So I got really good shit on mom from dad and really good shit from dad on the other. So, and then I didn't feel the need to stay faithful to any of it because it was all in service of the story, because the themes were the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, that the story starts when Jacob is an infant, because actually your very first
Oh God, here we go.
chapter is called "He Has Big Balls," and I'm like, and so I started reading that chapter, and it's his grandma, and only just a little bit for the listeners. Grandma sort of kind of like bathing and saying, "Oh my God, he's got big balls," and mom is in the background like, oh my God, she's saying he's got big balls, but is she saying it because of XYZ, or is there something wrong with my child? Like, she's looking at it from a point of, Mama's being critical about everything that I do, but now she's criticizing my flesh and blood, and I'm thinking something's got to be wrong, because I really can't
Something's wrong.
think
That's
for a
right.
second that my own mother would be looking at my child and saying something sexual
That's right. Good
about
job.
my
job.
child, right? Like, that's the
That's right.
feeling that I got. That's the emotion that I got. And like, you
Yeah.
really allowed me to like feel her emotion, because if I were a parent and I heard my own parents say, "Oh, look at his little pee-pee. Oh, look at his little ball," I would be like, "Bitch, that's my son. You're touching his
That's
fucking
right.
Stop it. You don't do that. That's not acceptable. It
Right.
may have been acceptable when you were growing up back
That's
in the
right.
40s, 50s, and 60s, but you're not going to do that to my child now."
Exactly.
That's what I got. And it
You
was
got it
just
right on target.
and it was just like so like in your face. I was like, holy shit, I felt that emotion. I felt her emotion. You did such a good job
Thank you.
capturing those first 5 minutes of that book.
Thank you so much.
It was like really an eye opener, because you can see, right? What a lot of people don't realize, that a lot of the behaviors that we experience in life, and especially as a child or growing up, or to your own children or your grandchildren, is all generational. It's about what is
Yes.
acceptable at one point in time that is no longer acceptable today, and how do you
That's right.
navigate the permissions and the
That's right.
opportunity for someone to say, you can't do that anymore.
Exactly.
That
How
is
do
not
you?
right.
How do you, where do you find your power to tell your own mother, no, that's not okay? But you have to.
Yeah.
And
You
you
have
see
Or
that.
or when are you too old for mommy and daddy to bathe in to be in the bath with
Right.
you?
But
That's
it's not
right.
only that.
That's another conversation for
It was just the sense of you as a parent making your own decision and saying that's not okay. You can no
Yeah.
longer do that. And I never said anything, because you were my mother and I was taught that I needed to respect my elders. But in a
There it
position of me
is.
being a parent, I have to take a stand, and I
Yeah.
have to make the rules for my child and how I see my child is going to be raised going forward.
Well, remember, rules change because Donald Trump is your
Oh
elder.
God.
Well,
Just saying, generational changes.
So I wanna kind of bring it back just a little bit, because I want to say that this book is speaking to something that it's a tough topic. It's a very important topic that our community needs to speak about and explore and acknowledge. But I really want to know. You decided to write this book, and what are your hopes and dreams for this book? What do you want it to do for the community and beyond?
um, I want both uh, for younger people. I mean, there's the three major themes are abuse, whether it's physical or sexual, bullying, and coming out issues. Those are the big themes in there. And I want younger readers to hear of a story about someone who struggled in his way to come out in an age that's different from their own,
Mm-hmm.
but has a lot of reflectors and mirrors about what's going on currently. They can relate to, and hopefully they'll see at the end that it does end on. There are threads of hope throughout. It gets dark, and then it ends on a very hopeful note. And we looked to story. I don't know if you're familiar with Kubrick or The Power of the Myth by Joseph Campbell. We go to story to solve our problems. So I want that younger audience to get out of it that there's a way. Teen suicide, especially LGBT suicide, is so high. Second
Yep.
cause of death among teens. So I want there to be a story out there that touches them. For the older generation, I hope it's a wake up call to go, you know what? A lot of you need to just fucking come out of the closet. A lot of you need to step up, if you already are out of the closet, and reach out to your younger brothers and sisters and let them know you're there. Let them know you love them, you accept them. Get political, get involved in the community. You went through something like this. This will ring true to you, this story. It will touch you in some area of your life. Even if you're not gay, people who are bullied can relate to this. People who have been depressed, who have PTSD. There's Jacob, and this is what terrified me when I started writing it, was Jacob is everybody. it won't matter if you're gay or straight, because something that Jacob's going through will affect you. And so I want other people who are reading this to realize that there are lines that can be crossed where you can help somebody else.
Hmm.
If you've been through something, you owe it to get up and then reach across and help someone.
And we talk about this on the show a lot, but stories like this and books like this, there are, for so long there's been silence.
Yes,
There hasn't been representation for our community or
Mm-hmm.
for situations like
that's
this.
right.
That's right.
And when you, as an individual, whether you're coming out, whether you were molested, whether you were bullied, whether you're dealing with religion issues at home, as an LGBTQ plus individual, or as a regular individual, to have representation, to be able to read a story that you can relate to, makes you feel a part of something bigger, makes you feel valid.
I always say
That's right.
that visibility, and I say this often, is our biggest strength.
Mm-hmm.
As a
That's right.
community, as a people, as a society, being visible, showing someone that you exist, that you matter, that you are an individual, that you can be who you want to be, is one of the
Yes,
biggest markers and one of the biggest things that you could ever show someone, because you're literally saying to them, if you're thinking that you're this way, look at me, I'm this way, it's possible.
Hmm.
And
Here's what
it's
could be.
possible.
and to take that even
That's
further,
right.
peoples and societies, they die, but stories don't. And that's
That's
why
right.
it's so
That's right.
important. And on the way here, I was listening to NPR with Ari Shapiro about this new novel called Gun Island by Amitav Ghosh, and it really focuses on,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, the story I'm talking about.
yeah.
It sounds absolutely fantastic, and it really talks about the cataclysmic effects of climate change. But one of his quotes that he was saying was, fiction allows us to look at the world in a different way. And it
That's
really is
right.
important because people, demographics, ideals will always die,
Mhm.
but stories will forever live on.
That's right.
Forever.
Including this
Exactly
show,
right.
and I'm sorry for all of our listeners. But so, is there anything else you want to say about the story before we ask you to plug it, where they can find it when it's released?
You know, there's so much to it, and what the early feedback I've gotten so far from people is it's a fast read. It's something that they pick up and they have a hard time putting down because it does capture them, and I'm glad to hear that. So I would ask that, if the don't feel like this is just a gay book. It centers on a gay boy who's growing up and going through life, but in him and in his story, there's parts that everybody can relate to. So that's my final plug for that. Please just look at this book as a universal experience. It's a human experience.
That's we had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and his work, he used the line, gay characters, universal content. And once you just said that,
Yes.
it just made that click in my head. So that is important. That is
Well,
important.
you know what? It's like "Call Me by Your Name" by the great Andre Osman. People fell in love with that story because the love was universal.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I compare myself to him at all, but I'm hoping that what you see in the themes, many people have been bullied, many people have been abused in some fashion, many people have. I mean, those themes touch people's lives,
Mhm.
and so don't think, oh, this is just for gay people.
Right.
No, it's not. This is something that you can relate to.
You know what's interesting? I don't know why it just clicked in my head, but we're talking about a book that surrounds a gay character, and you're saying don't think it's just for gay people. I grew up reading books about heterosexual people, not thinking it was about
Right.
heterosexual people,
Right.
but
That's
but
excellent.
finding themes within the book that I related to.
Yes.
And it's funny that
Yes.
now we have to have a conversation and say, this isn't a book about gay people. This is a book about people and people's
People.
experience in
Right.
life. And
That's right.
that just fucking
the
clicked in
themes
my
that-
head.
You had an epiphany.
I
didn't
did,
you?
Right there.
yeah. Like it was like, bam, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this Latin
And
boy
it
using
was-
big words.
And even Hans Hershey, he has talked about that in his latest trilogy of novels, that this does not have to be for gay people.
That's right.
It is not a book for gay people, and that is a great epiphany. That we read books about people that were straight, but it was about the underlying themes beneath the book.
As a gay man, we had to find
But
as a gay people, we had to find things and themes within a book so that we could relate to the book and still love the book and take something away from the book.
But that was
Why
also
can't a heterosexual person do that with
That's right.
gay star and a
well,
book?
first of all, they never had to. They always had books
Right.
that were for them.
Right.
But for us, the gift that we had is that we had the power of imagination. We had the power of being able to take a story and say, "Yeah, I know you're talking about a girl, but it could be me."
Yeah, I was totally
And-
Rachel
Right.
McAdams in The Notebook.
Right.
Just saying. Like a lot.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were gonna say
Oh
something.
no, I was laughing at him.
Yeah, she's
Funny.
I
this
laugh
one.
at her all the time.
Oh, fuck off.
So, Akiva, I want to thank you again for, first of all, for writing this book, because I think that there's a lot of really good information. There's a lot of really good context in this book that could really help someone navigate something very tough in their life, a very tough period in their life. And you speak
I hope
about it
so.
in a way that is just self-reflecting, but also self-helping. And that's a beautiful thing. So I want you to tell us a little bit about how our listeners can find you as an author, when the book is coming out, when it's available, how they can get it. Give us all of the tea.
All right, it's going to be so it's the week of National Coming Out Day, so that's going to be September 11th. You can get it early, starting on the 8th
October
on
11th. Right?
Amazon.com. What?
October
October?
11th?
October. Yeah, October. I'm sorry, September 11th. Hey,
It's heavy in our
October 11th.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. October 11th is National Coming Out Day. It'll be early on. Actually, I'll have on my website at Akiva Hersh. That's AKIV as in Victor AHERSH.com. AkivaHersh.com is where you can find all the pre-sale information. I'm on Twitter at Real Akiva Hersh. Instagram at Akiva Hersh, and on Facebook, just go to Boy in the Hole on Facebook, and all the pre-sale information will be out there probably in a week or two if you sign up. But you will be able to buy the book that first week in October 11th, when National Coming Out Day.
Can I ask one little question?
Sure.
Is the proceeds of the book, is a percentage of it or anything like that going to any type of organization for the first, National Coming Out Day or anything like that?
I haven't thought about it. That's a good question. I am partnered with Stop Abuse Campaign, and they're what would you say, endorsing the book and putting it out there at stopabusecampaign.com. But that's a really good point. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I mean, I would just, we had somebody on, I don't know how long ago it was, but a percentage of
The pre-sales or the opening day sales.
That's a great idea.
was going to
I
an
wouldn't even know how to
organization.
begin to start managing that. Like, who do I reach out to? Or
Well, we can look in our past episodes
Yeah.
because there was an author that we had on. I believe it was the opening day sales or maybe the first week or.
And also, it gives you more visibility, whether it's
Yeah.
the institution you're working with, or say the Trevor Project for suicide in the LGBTQ
Exactly.
community.
It-
But it'll give you more visibility, but it'll also be supporting of the community.
Yep, absolutely. I mean,
You don't
anyone
have to do it.
contacts-
I'm
No,
just-
I love the idea. And if anyone contacts you on your show who wants to do that, please let me know.
Absolutely.
oh, absolutely.
will.
So if our listeners need to reach out to you, is there an email that they can send you lovely messages to?
Yep, akiva.hersh@gmail.com.
Fantastic. All right. Well, listen, it has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us on today's show. The book is called Boy in the Hole. See, I knew that was going to be tough.
She got the big words, but she couldn't get.
Boy in the Hole, and it's going to be available on October 10th. It is going to be released that week because, of course, it's National Coming Out week or day, and so it is an amazing thing to do. I want to thank you again for joining us on today's show, and if you have any updates on anything that you're doing regarding, maybe donating percentages of sales,
or
etc.
the sequel.
Yeah, I was like, "There's a second one coming."
That's right. Keep us
Yes.
surprised. Well, you're family now. You're
Once
on the
you're here,
show?
you can't escape.
That's right.
She's going
All
to
right.
email you a lot.
And I will
All
finish
right.
the book and review it online for you for sure.
Please do.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Will
And
do.
thank you guys for having me on the show. I love you guys, and I really appreciate the support.
All
We
right,
love you
have
too. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you have yourself a fantastic evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, that was author Akiva Hersh. His book, again, Boy in the Hole, is going to be coming out on October 10th. I implore that you guys go check it out and, give it a try, because I think that you'll find a lot of... Listen, the first 5 minutes for me of the book, I was just like, holy shit, I would kill my mother if she did this. But, it is what it is.
I can verify she's alive. I saw her recently.
In full disclosure, I have not been able to. I love to read the books that we have on the show, but I have not been able to get through this one because I've been so crazy.
I started reading it, and I was just like, all right, well, I can't say why I had to stop reading it, because then I might
Well,
get in
let's
trouble.
talk about the Astroglide you leave all over the house. That's
Yeah,
why you
that
had to
may-
stop.
She might be
reading it.
preoccupied.
No.
I'm preoccupied because I'm reading a history book, a French book, a political science book.
Going to work.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
What I really wanted to talk
Going
about
to New
was one
York.
of the first
Hi,
things that I
Jack.
said during... What I really wanted to just briefly go back to was one of the it was a very, very confessional moment for me. I just literally said on the show that as a child I was molested.
Yeah, I know.
Not once, not twice, but numerous times.
And it's
And I
important.
took my power. And it's not something that I've ever said publicly before. Or
Well, we've
something that
talked.
I've ever said aloud.
Yeah,
We've
we-
talked about it before.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, but I've never really been able to say that
Mhm.
with such conviction. And having a book like this come out, it just really shows you, the power of visibility.
And while it seems so personal, it's something that so many individuals across the state of Connecticut, across our nation, and abroad have gone through, continue to go through, or will go through in the future.
That's right.
And let me just boast you up a little bit because I don't normally do this, but you being
I'll kick her down later. It's fine.
All right, great.
Hold on.
You being able to come out and say what you said is probably going to help a lot of people because it's hard to come to terms with some of the stuff that you went through, and I'm sure a lot of people in our community or outside of our community have gone through. And you have the strength to share your story on the air, and that's going to give strength to a lot of people that listen to our show.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's to me, today's episode has been a revelation, because I don't think that was something that I would have ever wanted to vocalize, but I did.
And I had
did.
an epiphany.
And he had an epiphany, and you had your moments. Or you always
was
have
like,
your moments.
Thanks.
But I love you, Christopher, and you know I do.
And there's something I actually, now that we're still staying on novels, and I love that he got excited when I mentioned Gun Island, what I was talking about, the story I listened to on the way here. And I just wanted to read these two paragraphs because it kind of does bring it back together with it. It's Ari Shapiro was reporting this today on my drive over here, who is a gay journalist, just to put out there. So Amitav Ghosh was working on his novel Gun Island and imagined a scene in which a wildfire was advancing toward a Los Angeles museum. About 6 months later, the scenario played out in real life as the Skirball fire burned near the Getty Center in December 2017. So what he had written later happened. And he said he felt, quote, completely shaken. Quote, to see things that you've seen in your mind sort of playing out in real life, it's just so disturbing, you know? He says, and then he continues to say that this is the world we live in. This is a world where excuse
You got
me.
this. You
Hold
got
on, excuse
this.
me. Sorry, I moved. The world of fact is outrunning the world of fiction, which is so
No.
true.
Yep.
Not
It
in the
is-
Donald Trump world.
No, absolutely, because this fictitious thing that so many people use to spread false hopes or spread lies, the fact is outrunning and overcoming those things now.
Yeah.
Can I monopolize the conversation a little bit?
You always do.
Yeah, I want to run through some things really quick because we are running out of time. if
Oh,
that's
yes, we
okay.
are.
Is that okay with you guys?
Well, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Arun Bose, who just sent us a message on our
Who?
YouTube. He's one of our Patreon subscribers. He said that we're doing a great job with the show. Keep it up, guys. All the best.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling.
So I want to cover something super quick because I have to, and then I want to talk about New Haven Pride for like a hot second. and then we've got to close out the show.
Yes, we do.
All right, so we have some really exciting news, everybody, because guess what? We have some more gay animals.
Oh, Lord have
Yay!
mercy.
And we need to talk about gay animals because I'm obsessed with them, obviously. So, a penguin chick at the London Aquarium was raised by 2 lesbian penguin parents, and it was beautiful.
Yay.
Marma and Rocky hatched an egg given to them by the staff after another penguin's mother couldn't handle the pressure of 2 babies. The Gen 2 penguin chick, yet to be given a name, is now 4 months old and has become the first in the aquarium's history to not be assigned a gender. So this Gen 2 chick does not have a gender, and evidently this is
It could be they, them.
well, it's
And I love
kind
it.
of a normal thing in the penguin community,
Yes.
which I wish I could go into a little bit more. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit next week. But it's while the decision may ruffle a few feathers, gender neutrality in humans has only recently been a widespread topic of conversation. However,
right.
it's completely natural for penguins to develop genderless identities as they grow into mature adults.
Yay,
amazing.
penguins.
So, speaking of that, you had something that you wanted to mention very quick about
I did.
your fascination with gay animals.
So it's so funny because like I don't know where this came from. I think it's just adorable.
it's a thing.
Hold on, I've got to find the email. Let me get it. I think.
Well,
this is
while
it.
you're finding that, I learned something yesterday about animals. I can't confirm whether or not they were gay or heterosexual, but I did not know that flies hump. I saw 2 flies having sex yesterday.
Listen, I constantly squat them, swap them.
Okay, well, let them at least
Were
finish
they gay
first.
flies?
I said I cannot confirm nor deny if they were same sex because they looked quite identical, but I can confirm that house flies do indeed.
Well, I
hump.
can tell you also while you're looking up for that
I
email.
have it.
Oh, she's
Oh, you
got it.
have
All right,
okay,
Tom.
very quickly. When I went down for Mother's
Oh,
Day
she's
to
not.
Florida, there was a love bug infestation, and so there's like constantly these locked bugs just flying around, and it's just incredible to see, but it's also very annoying. But they don't bite you, they don't sting you, they don't do anything. They just fly into you while they're having sex. I had bug semen probably all over my face. It's disgusting.
Disgusting, Trish.
I know.
All right, so a couple. I don't think we talked about this on the show, but back in June,
right.
we got an email from Ed Stern, who is a listener and actually a Patreon contributor to our show. And he said that he is the host or one of the hosts of Terrestrial Radio, which is a program in the DC area. But since I'm young, I probably don't know what the radio show is, so I listen to it. It's good. They said we do Inside Out LGBTQ radio every Tuesday from 2 to 3 on WPFWP 89.3 FM. And of course, it's streamed and it's a podcast as well. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because gay animals have become such a theme of our show. I got a shout out on the show about how I always talk about gay animals.
That's right.
And why gay animals are important. It was a short little snippet, and can I play it?
I love how the fact that he was like Nick or Trish, right? Was that what he said, or did he just call you Trish?
He just called me
let's
Nick.
let's play it. Let's find out.
All
Just
right,
make
hold
sure you
on.
put your mic right onto
I
it.
gotta pull it up. It's
Oh,
right.
Lord have
It's
mercy.
right here. It's right here.
All right, you got this.
Hold on.
In the way you're supposed to there.
To what Catherine was talking about with that Judeo-Christian, ethos, right?
Right.
They don't, in our world, to the best of my knowledge, they are not faith-based, animals.
Oh wait.
But I think that's the fascinating part of
In present day, from
I
their
got it.
term,
Don't worry.
She
one
got
of
it.
one of the hosts of that show, Nick, is fascinated.
Here it is.
Well, I think we do.
Are you sure you got it now?
I think as a society, people do like to measure things or understand them from their own perspective. I think, I'm a dad. I'm a father. I have a husband. We've been married 15 years. Our son is 4. And people still want to know, okay, so who's the husband and who's the wife?
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. We hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
We better figure that out.
Right. So, and people want to understand us in present day from their terms, as opposed to maybe, why don't you find out where we are and understand us from our terms?
Yeah, it's funny, Michael. There's an LGBT podcast that I listen to, GayTalk 2.0, and one of the hosts of that show, Nick, is fascinated with gay animals. Every
sure
newscaster,
is.
about a gay penguin, gay flamingos, whatever. But they don't fall into what Catherine was talking about with that Judeo-Christian, ethos, right? They don't, two flamingos are just two flamingos.
Right.
To the best of my knowledge, they are not faith-based, animals. But I think that's the fascinating part of it is that this, it just works.
So yeah, so so
There it is.
there was a little shout out about gay animals. I mean, the conversation obviously it makes more sense in the context of the conversation. I'll post the link of this episode on our post tonight because it was a good conversation. But that being said, yeah, no, gay animals are a thing, and they're there, they're here. We're queer, we're doing it,
And
we're
they're
living
staying
our
here,
life.
and we have to do it.
So you should definitely check out their show, terrestrial radio program, the Inside Out LGBTQ Radio, every Tuesday from 2 to 3.
That is too funny.
I know. It was. We got this email, and I was like, oh God. And they sent a little link. They were like, the snippet is between this time and this time. I'm like, what did they say? What did I say?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Because
I was like,
normally it's her
oh.
getting in trouble, right?
I was like, oh, it's okay. It's not bad. We're good. Okay.
All right, so listen, we have something to talk about that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be going on here in our own hometown, and so I'm going to give it to Nick because you're going to.
Yeah,
Tell us a
so
little bit
I
about it.
wanted to kick this very hopefully quick conversation off with it is Pride New Haven this weekend, and we
This
kick-
whole week.
This whole week, yeah. So
Oh.
we kicked it off on Sunday, yesterday, and what's really amazing is that we kicked it off by flying a rainbow flag that will be flown on the New Haven Green all week. So there hasn't been a rainbow flag in New Haven in decades. This weekend, the New Haven Pride Center decided to put one up for at least a week, and it make it as inclusive as possible. Sunday afternoon, around 50 people gathered on the New Haven Green for a flag-raising kickoff, a reception for Pride New Haven,
That's
a
right.
week-long celebration of LGBTQ plus pride in the city. There are over 20 events with over 100 artists and the largest representation of LGBTQ plus artists in the state of Connecticut this week. So we're really excited about Pride this week.
That's right. I'll be attending some of the events, and especially the block party that's going to be happening on Saturday in New Haven. I believe it starts at 1 p.m. and there's going to be a lot of things going on. There's going to have, the food trucks and vendors and drag queens performing, and of course, drinking.
Yeah, well,
which
that's
I enjoy.
while that's fun and all. Also, be sure to look online to figure out the events that are going on at the Pride Center, the forums that are going to be taking place in the city, so we can really talk about issues that need to be discussed and solutions that have happened or in the works of happening. So there's a lot to take place in during this week of events.
Absolutely. So if you go on our website, GayTalk20.com, and you go under your blog post, I did post a post today because I was super happy that one of our many different sponsors, community sponsors for the New Haven Pride Center and obviously Pride Week, it was IKEA. IKEA has this digital, what do you call it?
Billboard.
Pylon? A billboard.
I just want to say I started that trend. Mhm.
Whatever.
She
But anyway,
did, she
I'm
did.
happy that IKEA, being one of the community sponsors, actually is promoting the Pride event.
Thank you, Jeff and Gwen. We love you.
It's amazing because it's just to see that representation is just one thing, but to drive down and be like, oh my God, New Haven Pride 2019 is just insanely amazing and beautiful. But not only that, IKEA will also, it's my understanding, I had an inside source that said to me, yeah, you can use the photo, but I believe that IKEA will also be raising a pride flag for the entire week at their property in New Haven, Connecticut.
That's amazing. I'll have to
fantastic.
check on my way to work tomorrow.
So-
I also want to mention two other things really quick. This Pride Week is pretty exciting, but what's really exciting is that it follows the first ever Connecticut's Gay Black Pride. So that happened this past Saturday with a coalition between Black Lives Matter New Haven and A Place to Nourish Your Health, APNH, and it was held on Gough Street Park this Saturday afternoon. So that's really exciting that we're really starting to partner together and we're starting to grow what pride means in New Haven and really starting to see more of an inclusive attitude with the New Haven Pride Center and other organizations locally. But last but not least, I want to give a fucking huge shout out to Patrick Dunn because
That's right.
holy shit has he done amazing work at the New Haven Pride Center, and every year it gets better and better, and I can't wait to see what we have in store this
And
week.
Patrick
this year.
has been a part of our show now for the better part. He's been on our show for at least 4 or 5 times. That's Kiki Lucia, and of course, as
Didn't he replace me once?
He did. As the executive director of the New Haven Pride Center, he's done amazing work. So I encourage that you guys, if you're in the area, if you're in New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, Connecticut, even the tri-state area, and you want to come and share with us, go to the newhavenpridecenter.org. They have a listing of all of the events that are going on all week long. So you guys can, there's something for everyone. There's something for the trans community, something for the non-binary, something for just go to the website. Find an event that you really love and support. And of course, support the New Haven Pride Center in New Haven if you're local, or support a Pride Center near you, because let me tell you, the work that they do is amazing for the community and for our youth, and it is important.
And they are nonprofits, so they do take donations.
That's right. All right, so we need to wrap up. So I'm going to let you boys do we have 3 segments that we need to cover. Those are very quick. I'm going to hand it over to the boys.
All right, everybody. So, Chris, set me up,
Timer,
please. All right, everybody. So it's Mama Kim's Minute.
And go.
All right, number 1. Shantae, you stay. Elizabeth Warren makes surprise appearance at RuPaul's DragCon. 2. A gay teen who was brutally bullied for years fought back. He got 14 years in prison for it.
Justice reform now.
Literally. 3. Remembering Mark Bingham, the gay hero who helped Flight 93 back from the hijackers on 9/11. 4. 2 ancient skeletons were found holding hands, and they were both men.
Oh,
Not bad. 31 seconds. Those are
not
good
bad.
stories. Good
Yeah.
stories. Good stories.
All right, so what
All
do we
right.
have?
So, boy in a hole, so maybe this isn't appropriate, but I did it anyway. So this week's Gay Talk term, of course, brought to you by
GayRealEstate.com.
is hole it. Hole it means to clamp the anal sphincter muscle about the probing shaft. This produces anal tightness, a criteria of anal sex.
She got this.
A criteria.
A criteria. Hole it to clamp the anal sphincter.
That's a criteria.
Sorry.
Did you get that?
Whatever. It's called Hole It. It was a little dirty, but
Yeah.
there it is.
All right, Christopher?
Yes, of course, on this day in gay history, brought to you by
GayRealEstate.com.
Boil in the hole.
That's right. When September 16th, 2003, in the nation of Israel, Israeli couple became first to be jointly recognized as biological fathers. Yuval Topa Erez, a trans man, and his husband Matan become the first same-sex couple in Israel to be jointly recognized as biological fathers of the same child. Previously, one of the parents was legally required to adopt that child.
Did you get all that?
That was a good one, Chris.
That was a good one.
All right. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. If you love the show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate and review on your favorite podcasting service. By subscribing, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your favorite device or web browser as soon as our episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon, which is a service that allows you, our listeners, to support the show with a monetary donation. Those donations are collected monthly and can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Christopher?
Guess what?
What?
I booked someone.
I know.
Finally!
No, this is like 3 and 3. That's 1 a year. That average is 1 a year.
No,
That's my quota.
That's
No,
true.
3. No, I got in trouble for the first one I booked because now I'm saying, yeah. So anyway, next week we are super excited to welcome to the show author and artist Joe Rapp to discuss his book, The Map to Metamorphosis, a watercolor poetry experience. This is a collection of poetry and prose about survival, trauma, and triumph, about the experience of abuse, love, loss, and the evolution of the self.
I'm feeling a theme.
I will tell you though, we have been on a author kick.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of authors that have reached out to our show. We're super grateful, obviously, but it's been amazing to see all the different types of creations and art that is out there, that's ready for the pillaging. Just grab a book and just really
Do
go
we
down.
do we see the theme here? Remember, peoples, institutions, nations, those die off, but
That's right.
stories live forever.
All I have to say is that I'm happy I don't have to do research and reach out to people anymore. They just call us.
So here's
And
the
I even
thing.
got us copies of the book.
So
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. So here's the thing. So typically we would have guests. They're all over the nation, all over the world. As you can see, Hans Hershey joins us all the way from Sweden. But next week's guest is going to be in studio with us. He's going to be sitting right here in this chair. He's going to be having a conversation with us, talking about the book, talking about the experience of writing it. So we're super excited.
The underlining themes. Yeah, it's
That's
going to
right.
be good discussion.
Nicholas?
Okay. Thank you to our guest author, Akiva Hersh, and his new book, Boy in the Hole, available on October 10th, exclusive digitally, only for 90 days on Amazon. The book will then be available in all stores.
That's right. And you can visit AkivaHersh.com for more information on the book, release dates, and all that good stuff, and everything that he has to offer. Chris?
Can we please put a rubber on this?
Let me go get the box. I'll pull out a couple of rubbers.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. As always, our show is available on our website, GayTalk2.0 under show and episodes. It is also available as a free download on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher Radio.
Nick announces you can find us on social media: Facebook, GayTalk 2.0, Instagram, GayTalk 2.0, Twitter at GayTalk20. You can email us at GayTalk2.0@gmail.com. Tom, take it away.
All right. And if you need to reach out to us, you can do so by heading over to our website, clicking on the Contact Us tab at the top of your web browser. There, you can leave comments, you can suggest topics, or leave a question or submit a question for the cast or an individual host. You can also call us and leave us a voice message. We can answer those questions for you on the show. The phone number is 334-GAY-TALK. And if you need those digits, it is 334-429-8255. Do not forget that we do stream live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. With that, ladies and gents, that is our show. Thank you, and y'all have a good night.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.